Okay, so the first thing in the shaping process is to prepare your work surface, and I put a thin layer of flour, the AP flour, over the whole thing. And then what we have to do is actually get the dough that's been rising in a warm place for 3 hours, and of course I did the 2 stretch and folds. Now it's ready to shape. You can see it's grown about 2 or 3 times the size that it was when we started. And so now we're going to shape it. I have to sort of jog it loose and flip it over. And it should, it's supposed to drop down, which it did. It dropped out of the bowl onto the work surface. And you can see how there's lots of bubbles in it. The gluten is starting to form, and it's ready to go. So now is the time. And it's a wetter dough than it started out. But so the first step, if you're doing this at home and you're not intending to sell, you can actually cut this by, just eyeball it as 2 different pieces about the same size. At the bakery, we do it by weight because we're selling it. And so I'm in the habit of first just cutting it into a piece of about what you think is about the right size, and then weighing it to about 600. We did 600 grams. 600 grams. This weighs 836 grams, which is a little too much. I'm gonna cut some off. And so we're at about 717 grams there. I'm gonna cut off a little bit more. That's 634. Okay, that's good enough. So that's the first one at 634. Now let's see. This other one looks a bit bigger. So we've obviously made more dough than 1,200 grams. They've got 830, so there's 2 different sizes, but you know what? We're not selling it, so it doesn't matter. I'll put a little bit more here to make them a bit more even. Now what I'm going to do is show you how to create 2 different shapes, but this is, as I say, it's a 2-step process. So now that we have the individual pieces of dough that are going to be turned into loaves, the first step in the process is to do what's called a pre-shape. And that is basically to create a rough boule. So to do that, basically all you do is you fold it in on itself and turn it around a couple of times like this, and then turn it over like this, and fold in the sides like that. And that makes your rough boule as your pre-shape. Now I'll do it again. So, okay, if you have extra pieces, just put them on top and folding in as we go around like this, and then roll it over and basically just fold it under like this, and leave them sit for about half an hour. And that's it just needs a bench rest for about half an hour. Then you'll be ready to do the final shaping. So now the loaves have been resting on the bench for about half an hour as rough boules. After that was the preliminary shaping. Now we're going to do the final shaping of the batards. So the first step in that process is to tap them down gently to basically pop any large air bubbles that might have formed during the preliminary shaping and the bench rest. So, and from here, what we want to do is actually stretch the dough into an oval shape. So it's this oval shape is pointing towards you, and what you do is you start at the end that's farthest away from you, at the tip here, and fold it in slightly like that. That brings up a couple of ears on either side. You fold those in, and then repeat that action with the tip, and then a couple of ears. And now from here, you just roll it the rest of the way up, like that. And you end up with this sort of short cigar shape, this short stubby cigar shape here. And that is your batard, which is not a baguette. Baguettes are thinner and much, much longer. So these are shorter and fatter, but this is a more traditional shape for French bread. So that's what I normally make. Now, these loaves are going to be resting overnight in the refrigerator on, well, this is a cookie sheet, and this is as fine a thing as anything else in order for them to get a good night's rest. So what you do is you have your cookie sheet, and then you just take like a dish towel or a tea towel or something that has kind of a short nap to it. Not, you don't want terry cloth or anything that's long, napped. And you rub a bit of flour into it to keep the batard from sticking. And then you lift it up gently and set it into the tray, onto the tray that has the tea towel on it, the flour tea towel. Now I'm going to be doing two, so the idea is you want to support these loaves while they're rising on both sides so that they rise up rather than out. I've got it here, the edge, this upturned edge will support it nicely on this first side. And remember, it is going to rise a bit, so you have to have some extra cloth on either side to contain it. You don't want it to spill over, and that shouldn't be a problem. So what I'm going to do here is sort of create another edge. You see this here, this edge. And so this is where the second one is going to rest overnight. So let's quickly form that one, and then we'll put it to bed next to the first one on what's called, that's the couche. So again, we're deflating it. We are shaping it into an oval, and sometimes you have to lift it up and turn it around a bit to get it into that full oval shape, which is fine. Now this goes in, the two ears, this in, and the two ears, and roll the rest of the way up like this, and you have your batard. And here is the, that's the other thing, and I'll pay special attention to it this time. There's a seam here, and then the other side is smooth. And what we want is the seam side up while they're rising overnight in the fridge, because tomorrow when we bake, we're going to turn them upside down and the smooth side will be up. All right, so what I'm going to do is lift this into place next to the first one, and you'll see on both of them seam sides are up. Now what I'm going to do is maybe add a little more flour here just to make sure it doesn't stick, and we fold this over like this, and it's not quite long enough to cover both of them. So what I'm going to do now, just to make doubly sure that everything is covered as it rises, is just take a second tea towel like this and tuck it into both sides here, like that. And over here, and this tucking over on this side will also support it to make sure that this this batard rises up rather than out as well. So folding everything over like this. Now the final step is to put the whole thing into a couple of plastic bags. And the plastic bags prevent the loaves from drying out while they're rising in the fridge overnight. It takes two for a cookie sheet like this. With the boules that we also make, it just takes one because they are much smaller and rounder. But here we go, two. So now this is ready to go into the fridge overnight, just like this. So that's the next step in the process. So we're just going to let them rise overnight in our home refrigerator. Now most home refrigerators are set to 40 degrees, which is exactly the temperature that you'd like to have, or at least no more than 40 degrees to let them rise. I mean, if it's a couple of degrees cooler, that's fine. It shouldn't be over 40 degrees, but most home refrigerators are set to 40 degrees, so that shouldn't be an issue.